Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. So we have storm systems on both coasts, and we're going to be covering them both and taking a look at what the one in the east is going to do, which is a big puzzle indeed. That's all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and that's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a really tough forecast for the areas in inland upstate New York, as well as in northern Pennsylvania, possibly even into northern New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley, just north of Route 84, because we are going to have a lot of cold air aloft. We don't have a lot of cold air at the surface, but we have a lot of cold air aloft. And this time of year, something like that can wind up being problematic when it comes to wet snow developing. And we'll get to more on that in a second. We still have red flag issues and fire weather risk going on in much of the area. This will probably be the last day of it because we're going to start to bring in moisture in from off the ocean on Wednesday ahead of the rain coming Wednesday night into Thursday. Meanwhile, we have winter storm warnings up in northern North Dakota, winter weather advisories on either side, also wind issues with wind advisories and high wind warnings in the Dakotas down into northern Nebraska. A major storm is off the coast of Washington and Oregon. It's a very powerful system. The mountains from the Cascades down to the Sierra Nevadas have blizzard warnings and winter storm warnings up and down. We also have big wind issues here, especially along the coast. And we also have various winter weather advisories going on in other areas and even a few winter storm watches. So they're busy out in the west. We're probably going to get busy here in the east. So here's the satellite loop this afternoon. Now, the lead front here is producing rain and a couple of thunderstorms here and there actually from the Great Lakes down into Ohio and then right down the Tennessee Valley into Georgia and Alabama. A lot of that rain is going to dry out. It's the energy from the system, the upper air system that is moving up into Minnesota, that it is going to start translating southeastward and strengthening. Meanwhile, out in the west, this is an animal here that's off the coast of Washington and Oregon. We're seeing this storm system deepening rapidly, some 60 millibars in the last 24 hours. It's not going to come crashing into the coast. It's just going to eventually meander just offshore with energy coming in waves. And that is what's bringing the precipitation there. Here's the latest radar, and there are some showers in western Pennsylvania into Ohio. There's a heavier concentration of rain and some heavier rain from North Carolina southwestward into the Florida Panhandle. A few thunderstorms in the mix there. We've got snow going on in North Dakota back into northeastern Montana. Also, some precipitation that's moving into Kansas. And we have waves of moisture coming in to the Pacific Northwest. Storm Prediction Center for today. A marginal risk in southern Mississippi and Alabama, actually just right near the Alabama border with Mississippi is where the back edge of this is. And that extends into the Florida Panhandle. General thunderstorms pushing on up further north. No severe weather is forecast for tomorrow, but general thunderstorm activity is being indicated as far north as the Connecticut-Massachusetts line. And in the Hudson Valley, just north of 84 is where it cuts off. And then it cuts off across northern Pennsylvania. WPC has actually increased the total precip amounts for the next 7 days, interestingly enough. And that's good news with respect to the drought. We're looking at inch and a half totals plus in liquid. And there's an area of 2 to 2.5 inches being indicated just north of New York City, going up 87 and then west on I-90. Also, some heavy precip in the West Virginia mountains into southwest Pennsylvania. We did neglect to mention that there are in that stripe in West Virginia, the first winter storm watches have gone up there. And of course, in the west, we've seen this for several days now. Very heavy precipitation from the northern half of California northward, also in the Sierra Nevadas, in that orange stripe zone, in that yellow stripe zone. We're talking about 10 to 15 inches of liquid precipitation. That's quite a bit, obviously, and several to 6 inches of additional rain running up the coast into Washington and into southernmost British Columbia. I have the upper air map here at 18,000 feet, and I just want to show you how this is all evolving. You see the energy that's down in New Mexico and Texas back on yesterday, lifting up rapidly northward. More energy is coming in. Some of it's from that offshore Pacific storm into Montana. That becomes the primary system here, and this is going to be diving southeastward into the eastern part of the United States. It's going to swing a weather front through Wednesday night and early Thursday. A storm is going to form on that front and head up into upstate New York. And then we've got to deal with this very cold, very strong upper air feature that's going to be rotating around in the Northeast and Mid Atlantic states right into early Saturday before it finally starts to pull away on Sunday. And when you have a situation like this, it's very cold aloft. Sometimes that cold air mixes down to the surface, and we're talking about freezing temperatures in the atmosphere, not that far up from the surface. So if you get intensity in the precipitation, I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up seeing some wet snow mixing in even down near the coast. You can see how the GFS handles this. First, with the rain, you'll notice, I'm just going to roll it back here. Tonight's rain kind of fades. And then you see the next low forming in eastern Michigan with a trailing front down into the Appalachians. The secondary low develops the point where the occluded front, the warm front, and cold front meet together, and a low develops there. And you can see the burst of yellows that show up during early Thursday morning, indicating some heavy rain and maybe even a rumble or two of thunder. That hangs around. The low is going to kind of move in a counterclockwise fashion and we'd still be sitting over Long Island Thursday night into Friday morning. So precipitation might be prolonged a bit. And then we're going to watch for a change over to wet snow in inland areas and elevated areas, which is where it would be favored. Some of the models are trying to generate some snows, as far south as the elevated areas of northwest New Jersey and the Hudson Valley. I'm not quite sure yet how that plays out, but you can't rule it out given the dynamics that we have in the upper atmosphere. We either way, especially along the coast, we're going to have showery precipitation going on later Thursday, also on Friday. Doesn't rain all the time, but it will be from time to time. Won't be precipitating, I should say. And then over the weekend, finally, as the system begins to slowly pull away, we'll see gradual improvement, probably by Sunday, not so much on Saturday. The other feature here, by the way, you'll notice is the strong isobars. So we're talking about um, rather gusty winds developing on the backside of this low, and there'll also be some gusty winds ahead of the system that's coming through Wednesday night and Thursday. So some rather unsettled and perhaps somewhat stormy conditions ahead in the west. You just continue to see that big storm that's offshore on the map, but waves of rain and heavy snow continue to move inland over the next several days. And a stronger impulse wants to come into California sometime on Sunday. So a lot going on here. We, of course, will be covering it in great detail tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. That's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. So mark it down, and we'll see you then.